We all know that number one is good at bossing people around. But did you know that number one hates puppies? Hates them. Seriously. Vote for Ed. Ed likes puppies. Number one hates puppies. Seriously.
These are sensitive times.
The year is 2004. You just got out of a long day of school. You get home, drop your book bag off on the floor, and head to your fridge to find an afternoon snack. Once the snack has been selected, you sit down in your living room, snack in hand, and turn on the TV to Cartoon Network, expecting to watch some cartoons to ease your mind from a very stressful day. But instead, you're met with the most important decision you'll ever have to make in your entire life. 3 of your favorite cartoon characters competing head-to-head to decide who will be the Cartoon Network's next president. And it's up to you and every other viewer across the world to decide who it will be.
We must all get ready now.
Weirdly enough, I didn't get to take part in who would become Cartoon Network's next president because I was under the voting age. And I didn't know how a computer worked because I was 3. But the ads were very fond to me and they're fond memories in my head. This specific ad campaign took off in October of 2004 and would feature one candidate and their choice of vice president. Unlike 4 years before, when Cartoon Network attempted the idea for the first time on January 14th of 2000, the 2000 election had 50 different candidates ranging from I Am Weasel, Dexter's Laboratory, Wreck, Aquaman, Powerpuff Girls, and of course Scooby-Doo.
Stop it, Shaggy. I'm not stupid. Are you cheating on me?
That election lasted 3 months and the winner was elected on March 19th of 2000, with Scooby-Doo reigning victorious with 17.4%, followed by the Powerpuff Girls with 11.1%, and then Bugs Bunny with 8.6%.
If you eat me, what do you got? One skinny rabbit, that's all. Look.
So Scooby would serve as the network's first president ever, but before Scooby's first term could be completed, he was forced to step down as president. There was never any real reason given for this, but maybe Shaggy couldn't beat those stoner allegations.
Dude, we can do it, old pal. Just 1 week. With no fucking Scooby snacks, man. Like, I'm freaking out.
But for some reason, he was taken out of office and Ed was put in. Keep in mind that this was before the 2004 Cartoon Network elections, so he'd be running to be re-elected. Each of the 3 candidates could either choose their vice president or they could run alone. Ed's choice was Grimm, and together they'd run a campaign that would completely slander both Number One and Plank. Which, to be fair, I honestly think it was more of Grimm's doing than Ed's. In their effort to stay in office, they'd run attack campaigns claiming that Number One hates puppies, and how Plank is incompetent and couldn't even save his own kind from dying. Oh my gosh. Grimm also wrote jingles about how Number One may seem tough, but is really just a scared little boy on the inside. And Ed used his campaign slogan, "Confused, Good," to win the not-so-smart people over. Number One chose Eduardo as his vice president, and their campaign would stress that you trust them to be the future of your network. Because why trust Grimm when it's literally his job to go around and kill people? Which is a pretty decent point from Number One. He'd also urged that kids turn away from their parents and any other adult that gets in their way in true Number One fashion. Eduardo was just used as one of those people who could intimidate the other people who questioned their leadership abilities, which seemed to work, well, temporarily at least.
Number One, your critics say your policy on national defense seems weak. How do you respond to this?
Eduardo.
Right, no further questions.
Plank, on the other hand, had a completely different idea for what would be his presidential campaign. Plank didn't want a vice president. Instead, he let his own words speak for himself.
When asked where he stands on health care, Plank said we should put big insurance companies before patients. Nah, just kidding. What he really said was, you guessed it, nothing.
So as the deadline for those votes were starting to come close, both Ed and Grimm would take to the streets to hear what the people had to say. And these people clearly weren't biased at all truly trustworthy folks.
What are people saying about Number One?
Well, I know he hates puppies. That's not good.
Number One was mean to my children.
He's kind of a wimp. Number One pushed my sister. Number One took my lunch money.
If Number One becomes president, I'm afraid he'll hurt my puppy.
Number One smells bad!
Vote for Ed. Re-elect that old familiar smell.
But either way, if the word of the people was anything to go off of, then the narratives pushed by Grimm and Ed were working. A lot of citizens were really concerned about having number one get near their dogs, so it seemed like the damage had been done. Once the votes were counted up, the winner was announced. And on November 5th of 2004, Ed would be announced as the president of Cartoon Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your president, Ed.
Is that a jawbreaker? You have jawbreakers!
Now, what did that mean exactly? I don't know. This was all just one big gimmick. A fun gimmick, but a gimmick nonetheless. I'm doubtful that any of this was mentioned a week after the election ended. You know, it's events like these that make Cartoon Network feel unique compared to Nickelodeon and Disney Channel. And I know a video like this really doesn't feel super necessary to make, but it's hard not to show appreciation for the effort that was used on these channels and their events that they put on. Even though after doing the research on this video, I started to realize why not many other YouTubers have talked about it, there just isn't enough information to go off of really. At least not enough to warrant a long form video, but it's something I still had enough interest in to talk about. While Ed's presidential status was never really promoted on the channel post-election, the next 4 years went by, and with that it was time for the Cartoon Network's next election. But unfortunately, that never materialized, as Cartoon Network opted to ignore the channel's elections, ending this short-ran trend for good. Possibly because of a switch in studio management or the network entering their live-action era, but as this video comes to a close, I have a question for you. Who would you have voted for in the 2004 Cartoon Network elections? Comment down below, and vote for your Cartoon Network president in the community poll. Send me out, narrator.
The president who defines the character of a nation.
I have the heart, the soul, the conscience of the people in the palms of my paws. I am a riot mob. When I hear the riot people run a ball, I hear them when I want to roll their rouse for lunch.
Where's your candidate?
Over here.
Vote for Scooby-Doo. He hears you, he cares about you, he wants to eat your food.